All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible stories of our time, the journey of ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. This isn't just a story about rockets and satellites. It's a story of pure grit and vision that is, without a doubt, India's pride.
Everything you need to know about ISRO is summed up in this one iconic image from the 1960s. A simple bicycle in Kerala with a rocket part strapped to the back. It just perfectly captures the spirit of this entire journey, starting with almost nothing, but aiming for the stars.
And that really is the big question, isn't it? How on earth did that journey, the one that started on a bicycle, actually end up reaching the moon, Mars, and beyond? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. So let's rewind the clock. We're going back to the 1960s. India is a newly independent nation with huge dreams, but let's be honest, pretty small resources. This is where it all began. The sheer resourcefulness in these early years is just mind-blowing. In 1962, INCOSPAR was formed, led by the visionary Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. And when I say their facilities were humble, I mean it. A local church in a village called Thumba, that was their main office. The bishop's house, that became their workshop. And yeah, those famous stories are true. Rocket parts were actually transported on bicycles and bullock carts. And yet, from all that, they launched their very first rocket in 1963. And by 1969, ISRO was officially born. Of course, no great journey is a straight line, right? And ISRO's was full of challenges. This next chapter is all about taking those first big steps, hitting some major bumps in the road, and learning how to get back up again. So in 1975, India officially steps onto the world stage with its first satellite, Aryabhata, a huge moment of pride. But there was a catch. It was launched using a Soviet rocket. So while it was a success, it was also a reminder that India wasn't fully independent in space. And that lit a fire under them to become truly self-reliant. To be self-reliant, you need your own ride to space. For India, that was the SLV, the Satellite Launch Vehicle. Now you gotta understand, for a young space agency, this was a massive undertaking. Build your own rocket, from the ground up, to launch your own satellites. A huge, ambitious goal. So the big day comes in August 1979. The first SLV lifts off, and just moments later, it spins out of control and crashes right into the sea. It was an absolute gut punch, a heartbreaking failure. The media was harsh, morale was at rock bottom. It felt like a massive setback. But this is where you see the real ISRO spirit. Instead of seeing it as a failure, they adopted this philosophy. Failure wasn't the end. It was just a lesson. It was data. This single attitude became the bedrock for everything that came next. And get this, almost exactly 1 year to the day after that devastating crash, they tried again. And this time, the SLV flew perfectly. It placed the Rohini satellite into orbit. And just like that, India joined the very exclusive club of nations that could launch their own satellites. What a comeback. Okay, so that early success was amazing, but it was just the start. The next chapter is really dominated by one legendary rocket, the machine that turned ISRO from a promising upstart into a serious global player, the PSLV. You see, as India's ambitions in space got bigger, it was clear they needed a bigger, stronger, and way more reliable rocket. So pretty much all of ISRO's focus and brainpower got poured into developing this next-generation launcher, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, or the PSLV. And I mean, just look at that number, a success rate of over 95%. The PSLV became an absolute legend. And here's a fun fact, its very first flight in 1993 was actually a failure. But after that one little stumble, it went on to build a legacy of being so reliable, so consistent, that everyone started calling it ISRO's workhorse. And what a workhorse it's been. The PSLV is the rocket that carried India to the moon with Chandrayaan-1. It's the rocket that sent the Mangalyaan mission to Mars. It's launched over 300 satellites for other countries, and in 2017, it absolutely shattered a world record by launching 104 satellites on a single flight. Unbelievable. But even the mighty PSLV had its limits. To launch heavier satellites and go even deeper into space, ISRO needed a new beast of a rocket. And this is the story of how a major international snub gave birth to India's Bahubali rocket. I mean, the difference here is just huge. The PSLV could lift about 1,750 kilograms to a really important orbit. But for the big stuff, like heavy communication satellites or future missions to other planets, ISRO needed the GSLV, a rocket that could lift more than double that weight. It was a whole different league. Now, the secret sauce for the GSLV's power was this super complex thing called a cryogenic engine. In 1991, India had a deal with Russia to get this technology. But just 1 year later, the US imposed sanctions and blocked the whole deal. It was meant to cripple India's program. Instead, it lit another fire. It forced India to spend the next 2 decades developing this incredibly difficult tech all on its own, finally succeeding in 2014. And this became a pattern. A very similar thing happened during the Kargil War. The US denied India access to GPS data. So what did ISRO do? It just went and built its own version, called Navik. Time and again, a geopolitical challenge was turned into a reason to become even more self-reliant. So now we get to the modern era, where all that struggle, all that learning from failure, and all that innovation really, really paid off. And it paid off in a way that captured the imagination of the entire planet. And what a payoff it was. In 2008, Chandrayaan-1 gave the world definitive proof of water on the moon. In 2013, with Gaganyaan, India became the only nation in history to reach Mars on its very first try. And then in 2023, Chandrayaan-3 pulled off another global first, landing a spacecraft on the moon's treacherous South Pole. Just one historic achievement after another. Okay, this part is my favorite because it perfectly captures ISRO's genius. India's entire mission to Mars cost about 450 crore rupees. That same year, the Hollywood movie Gravity came out. Its budget, 750 crore. Let that sink in. ISRO sent a real spacecraft to another planet for less money than it took to make a movie about space. It is absolutely mind-boggling. And this journey is nowhere near finished. Today, ISRO is working on Gaganyaan, which is its first mission to send humans into space. They're planning their own space station. And in a really beautiful, full-circle moment, the same country whose sanctions once blocked ISRO is now a key partner, with NASA and ISRO collaborating on major projects. So from a bicycle in a tiny village to the South Pole of the moon, it's been one heck of a ride. But it leaves us with one final, really important question. Beyond all the national pride and these spectacular missions, what does all this space stuff actually mean for the average person back here on Earth? What do you think?